Do you sometimes wonder how you can raise kids who have their own faith that is built and founded on something solid and strong? With everything that's going on in the world today and all of the issues and the temptations and the pull of the world that's around them and all of the issues that are a little more unique this decade than they were 20, 30 years ago. Today, I'm going to share with you something that came out of a conversation with another godly woman who asked me what it was that we did that was good and right and helpful for our kids to help them in their relationship with the Lord. Hey, my name is Katerina. Welcome to this channel, or welcome back. So today, let's talk about one of the things that I believe that can be very helpful for parents to do in raising children to become strong in their own relationship with the Lord and to develop their own thoughts on that are independent of sort of mommy and daddy's faith, where they themselves can become rooted and founded in a strong faith and be prepared to face the world and the attacks that the enemy is really happy to send our kids these days. So let's get into this. My husband and I have 5 children, and he was raised going to church in a Christian home, and I very much was not. So we looked at a lot of the lessons that we learned from our various upbringings, from pitfalls, from mistakes that we saw happening with families and children and parents through that time, through my experience, through his experience. And we talked that out, we brought that together, and we did the best that we could to pray over that and to foster an environment that we felt would give our kids the best opportunity to grow in their own relationship with the Lord and to discover who Jesus is and to grow strong roots in that relationship with the Lord. I remember when one of our kids was in grade 1 and we were overseas, and there was a boy in this grade 1 class with our kids. Our child came home and was so distraught and upset and shaken because there was another boy who found out that our son believed that the Bible is true. And this boy said to him that if he ever saw a Bible, that he would basically burn it in front of our son to prove what he thought of the Bible. So we're talking a grade 1 child saying this to another grade 1 child. And this led to the cracking open of conversations earlier than what I would have hoped in life, to have to teach our kids how do we navigate not just people who maybe believe a little bit differently, but people who they have animosity towards us or a real hatred even for what we believe or what we represent, and how do we handle ourselves with that? What does God say about things like this? So while I, on a personal note, would have preferred to have an experience that really challenged our kids later on in life, this actually caused us to recognize the need to equip our kids from a very young age. Colossians 2:8 says, "See to it that no one takes you captive by philosophy and empty deceit, according to human tradition, according to the elemental spirits of the world, and not according to Christ." We can't always guarantee how things are going to work out circumstantially for our kids, but we can pretty much guarantee with a very real enemy who comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy, it is only a matter of time before that enemy seeks to harm our children. That's the unfortunate reality of the fallen world that we live in. And oftentimes it's going to come through unexpected places and people and circumstances, sometimes when we don't even feel prepared for it. So we began to have very deep conversations with our kids. And I remember I started accumulating books and DVDs and literature, and I found YouTube videos and things to begin to build our kids up. We began to expose them to Christian apologetics when they were very little. I think it's too easy to underestimate how smart little kids are. We began to share pretty advanced scientific things and findings, archeological discoveries in biblical countries with the kids. We would show them videos, we would have family discussions, and we began to bring Christian apologetics to the family dinner table. So bit by bit, we introduced the kids in a safe environment where we could be there to help them navigate some of the difficult questions that we knew it was inevitable that some of these questions and attacks would come. So we would start sort of having discussions and bringing to our family conversations over meal times the kinds of things that the world is infringing, that the world is pushing on our kids, the challenges. We would bring Christian apologists into the family conversation, and the kind of questions that they would get by atheists, by agnostics, by people of different belief systems that would come to these apologists, and they would bring their sort of like, aha, I got you now kind of things. And we would talk about these things with our kids, and we would ask them, what do you think was going on in that person's heart for them to attack that person in that way? What do you think is the wound behind someone coming with an argument that is intended to wound like that? What do you think that attack is about? Or let's look at the belief system, the ancient belief system from that individual coming with this perspective on Jesus or on God or on the scriptures. And we would invite the kids, we would ask them questions that would elicit an intelligent response from them, where they would really have to think, they would really have to process for themselves. What do I think? What does seem logical? What does seem right? And to teach our kids to seek out truth. John 16:13 says, when the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all the truth. For he will not speak of his own authority, but whatever he hears, he will speak, and he will declare to you the things that are to come. We wanted our kids to have a heart to seek truth and to be able to discern truth from deception. We would ask them poignant questions that would cause them to have to really think about their answers. We would sometimes challenge them with what they would say they believed and why, and to elicit a response where they would really have to sort of dig in, like, okay, yeah, why do I think that I believe that? Or why is that true? We recognize that if we didn't bring the difficult questions that are going to come to them in their probably teen years, if not sooner, and certainly in their young adult years, that if we didn't bring that as a family discussion where we could walk through that with our kids, that inevitably those things would come up through other places and other people. And we didn't want our kids to feel lost or ill-equipped or not able to recognize for themselves why they believe what they believe. If you're getting something out of this video, I would so appreciate if you would subscribe to support this channel and to hit the notification bell so you don't miss another upcoming video. 1 Peter 3:15 says, but in your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect. Now, I think this is really important because we've probably all seen people online who have come across as abrasive or harsh or angry or even obnoxious. And I know in my life, even especially as a younger Christian, I know that I was those things, unfortunately, to other people. And I know that I made mistakes to put off people to my faith and to what I was trying to share with them. It's not that I was trying to, but I ended up being obnoxious sometimes, not meaning to, but I cared about people and I wanted them to know the truth. And so sometimes just in my immaturity, not knowing better or not having developed enough character or things in my own self, then I ended up, unfortunately, going about things in a way that was not helpful to anybody at that time. And so we also wanted to share with our children, especially for me, I didn't come from a Christian background, and I was not very friendly to Christians in the beginning before I came to Christ. I was pretty harsh and judgmental and I would say aggressive at times, and I really didn't have a lot of good thoughts about Christians or the Bible. And so coming from the perspective that I did, I could sort of empathize with people who were angry at Christians or off-put or didn't want anything to do with Christians, or maybe who didn't know how to navigate a conversation in a way where it could lead to something productive. Or, you know, for people, sometimes they just want to come with an argument. They're not really interested in truth. They just want to argue their point. And that can happen on both sides. So it's not like, oh, one side is all fantastic and the other side is not. Like, that's not it. There can be good and bad approaches on both sides. And so we wanted to help people because we did run in with our kids at an early age, like I say, with this young boy who was in grade 1 who told our son he was going to burn a Bible in front of our son if he ever saw one. And so that's kind of shocking, right? And so this helped us to begin to explore with our kids, okay, so what's going on in that child's heart? Like when you're 5 or 6 years old and you're threatening to burn a holy book to spite someone, obviously something is awry. Either something with the parents, something in the home, or something in that child is not healthy for that kind of a response. So we also, to the best of our ability, we brought in conversations with our kids how to love on people and to get them to ask themselves questions if they would see a harsh response or an attacking voice. Like, okay, what's going on in that person's heart? Where are they coming from? What kind of wound do they have? Did someone who professed to be a Christian wound them, hurt them? Are they angry? Were they bullied in the past? Like, what is going on? And so part of it was to build our kids up to have deep conversations and to challenge points of faith so that they could begin to establish and root themselves in Christian apologetics and in both scientific evidence, archeological evidence, historic evidence, biblical evidence, the power of the Holy Spirit, all sorts of things on that side. And then the other side of it was raising our kids to look at what's going on in other people and why are they being met with a certain kind of attack or a response or a reaction, so that hopefully we all can a little bit better with a little more grace and love and forgiveness if we're approached in a way that is not just or fair, or if it's an attack of sorts. Then instead of us just getting defensive and attacking back and teaching our kids that, we did the best that we could to help them to understand human psychology, what's going on for people, and so they could have compassion for other kids who would attack them, or other people who were not behaving in a way that was maybe appropriate or fair or right or just. So while that's not always easy, if we find ourselves on the receiving end of something that maybe isn't very nicely put, I do like how it says in 1 Peter 3:15 at the end here, yet do it with gentleness and respect. So be prepared to have a defense and a reason for your hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect. I'm not saying I've always gotten that right, because I certainly haven't. And there are things that I regret, that I've made big mistakes sometimes, even in my desire to help people, to share and to love on people. And, sometimes I grieve over my own decisions, over my own approach to people sometimes, that I meant to help and I meant to listen to and I meant to reach, and I did a poor job. And if you find yourself in a situation like that, rather than beat yourself up and dig yourself into a deeper emotional hole about that, I would encourage you that God's mercies are new every morning. And if you have a heart to do that, God also wants to equip you and to train you and to transform you so that you can become a little more like Christ day by day, and hopefully do things with a little more kindness, a little more gentleness, a little more respect every time. If we can learn a new approach, a new way to have compassion, to love on people, and to become better listeners, I think that can go a long way to having meaningful discussions. Sometimes we would have friends or people come to the door of different faiths, and they would challenge us, or they would try to share what they believed. And we didn't sort of like shoo the kids out of the room at those times. We would allow them to be present and to join in on the discussions, or just to listen in to see how my husband and I handled those kinds of discussions. And we would endeavor to do it with grace, and we would endeavor to do it with listening and compassion and kindness. And as Jesus says, to love your neighbor as yourself. That doesn't mean we always get it right. We certainly don't. But I think when our kids can watch us engage in conversations that are challenging but meaningful, sometimes if a Jehovah's Witness or an LDS member or someone else from a different faith or an atheist, whether they'd be a friend or someone who would come to our door, it's not like the ideal thing is always to have to get every answer and get it perfectly right. Sometimes our kids need to see that, oh, mommy and daddy didn't know the answer in the moment, or maybe mommy and daddy just showed them love and that touched that person's heart, or maybe mommy and daddy had a chance to pray for that person. But it's not about having to get everything right, because none of us do all the time. It's about allowing our kids to watch us, and then even after a situation where we maybe miss the answer, and then maybe 2 hours later you're like, oh, that's what I needed to say. Well, that's fine. Then you bring that into a family discussion and go, you know what? If only I'd remembered to share that at that moment, that would have been the right answer, but that's okay. It's not about our kids thinking that we do it perfectly right, because they're not going to. So sometimes they need to see us navigate challenging or awkward or difficult conversations that are challenging. And they need to see us not always get everything right, but to not give up, but to keep pursuing the truth and honoring other people, respecting other people where they're at. Recently, one of our kids met an atheist, and the atheist, when they found out that our child was from a Christian family, from a Christian home, the atheist kind of went like, okay, and kind of went in for the I'm gonna get you now kind of thing with your stupid beliefs. And it was kind of condescending. And this person didn't think that our child would be able to have any answers, because I guess they had talked to a few Christians that were younger who didn't really have answers. And so this person expected that it would be the same with our child. And our child had an answer for what this person said, and they were a bit surprised. And then they kind of went, okay, well, what about this? Sort of like, aha. And then our child had a response for that and had some evidence for that. And then the atheist was like, okay, well, yeah, but you haven't thought about this. And then, kind of went on like that for a while. And our child had been equipped through the videos we'd watched, the family discussions we'd had, the books, the DVDs, the videos, the YouTube videos, all of this stuff over the years. It had kind of accumulated. So when our child was in that situation, they weren't like completely sidelined and confused and distraught about like, oh my goodness, I've never thought about these things. I don't know the answers. Instead, our child was like very calmly able to be like, well, have you thought about this? Well, what about this? Do you know about this discovery? Are you aware of this truth? Are you aware of this fact? Are you aware of this? And through the discussion, the person who was the atheist actually admitted, and they said, I've never actually heard a person who was able to answer that before. And they came in with another sort of like, aha, but now I got you with this one. And our child came home and said that they were kind of like, actually, have you thought about this? And then they brought another perspective to the table. And the atheist actually admitted that they had never been challenged on those things before, and that it left them really thinking about their perspective and where they were coming from. I felt grateful in that moment, recognizing that the years that we invested in all of the conversations, in talking to our children about challenging subject matter, about deep things, scientific things, archeological things, historic evidence, and a lot of the movies and the DVDs and the videos and all of these things, I really recognized in that situation that it had added up to give a foundation of a basis of truth, and to be able to discern truth from deception. And even if we don't want to adhere to truth sometimes because it's painful and maybe our flesh doesn't want it, especially for kids growing up, if you lay that foundation, it gives something solid for them to recognize that they can land on the truth and it feels solid. And truth feels different. I believe that if we can give our children truth from a young age, that those are seeds that God will continue to water as we continue to speak and to pray into our children's lives. And it gives a protection to our kids when they're going to face all sorts of things in the world, and especially with electronics and things that as parents maybe we didn't have growing up. It's kind of a level up of temptation and trials that they might face that are sort of on a different level. It's not that there's a new sin, but it's so much more easily accessible. And it's so important, I think, that we equip our children in the safety of our homes with deep discussions, and that we don't need to be afraid to talk with our kids about the kinds of arguments or attacks or temptations that the enemy is going to bring, or that friends of theirs might bring, or what they might encounter in someone else's home. And to not fear those things, but to talk about them, to pray about them, and to have a listening ear when our kids do encounter those things, and to be there to catch them and to love them, to walk them through, and to help them to learn how to love, to forgive, and to be kind, and to look to understand people of differing opinions, I think is very important. Getting back to the original question, when I was asked what was one thing that we did that was good and right for our kids, so far, this is something that I have seen that has borne good fruit in their lives. It doesn't mean our kids always make the perfect decision or the right decision or the decision that we even think that they should make, but it gives them a foundation for truth to fall back on in their lives. And it equips them to have intelligent thought and to be able to ask intelligent questions and to work it out, not just to accept something because mommy or daddy says to, but that they themselves don't need to be afraid to have deep and intelligent questions and conversations about who God is. So with that, I would encourage you, just like it says in 1 Peter 3:15, to help your kids to always be prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks for a reason for the hope that is in them, and yet do it with gentleness and respect to the best of our ability. And if we get it wrong, if our kids get it wrong, to extend grace to ourselves and to others. Thanks so much for watching today and for subscribing to the channel and supporting this channel. If you'd like to join my email list designed to support busy Christian moms, I'd invite you to comment below with your email address, and I'd be happy to put you on my email list for busy Christian moms and offer you some support and encouragement there as well. Thanks so much for watching, and God bless you.